So Gary, you want to start running, you're over 50, what do you do? I mean, how do you approach something like that? Is it even worth bothering? I don't know. It's one of those things where you just really have to want to get back to some semblance of what you had before. Let's say you're a high school runner or a college runner, and you really miss it, and you've raised a family, and the kids are out of the house, and you have time now to take up something you did and something you enjoyed in the past. Running is something you can actually get back into. You're never too old to run, but you also have to really think about where you are in your life and what you're capable of doing, and how to approach it. And I'll give you an example. I ran in high school. I ran in my 20s, and then I had a family and kids and a job and a whole bunch of stuff, and I didn't do anything. I didn't run for a long time, and about 10 years ago, I just really missed it. I really enjoyed when I was running 10Ks and half marathons and so on, and I took a shot at getting back into it, and I really had some misgivings about how am I going to do this, and do I have the stamina and the cardio for it, and so on. And I made a lot of mistakes, and I wanted to share those with you. One of the mistakes I made was I went out way too fast and too strong. So I went and bought, the best shoes I could buy. I bought some really nice Asics. I got all kinds of running gear, and I got out there and I started hitting the pavement. And man, that night I was in pain. I mean, everything hurt. And I thought, well, if I can go to the gym, I can run. But the reality is that my body just isn't the same. It isn't the same when I was, a teenager in my 20s. So I pulled everything back and I started walking, and I just figured out, what's a good, distance. I figured, 3 miles. So I picked 3 miles. I live down in Southern California. There's a beach trail near my house, and I literally walked that trail. And I had a 3 mile loop, and I probably did that walk for 2 months. And I started walking a little faster, and then I would bring in some running, but very light running, almost jogging. So I'd walk for a little bit, and I jog for a little bit, and I walk for a little bit, and going back and forth. And I started to build up my cardio over the 3 months that I was doing that, and then I started to actually try to run, actually try to get a pace going, 9-minute mile. And I felt like I was, I was making progress and I was running, but things were just hurting still. My back hurt a little bit, my knees were hurting, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? Why is this not, I should be stepping up every time. I should be getting a little faster, going a little farther. I started to increase my distance to 5 miles, walking and running. And I watched a video on YouTube. Actually, I watched a few videos on YouTube, and there was a guy that was talking about zero drop shoes. And I've always run in Asics. I've either run in Asics or I've run in Nikes, but mostly Asics. And it was really interesting, this video, because the guy was talking about fine-tuning your stride and fine-tuning your cadence. Right, stride is how far your legs will, how far you can step out on running, and cadence is the number of steps you have, right? So he's talking about stride, and he's talking about cadence, but he was also talking about heel strike. And it suddenly dawned on me, I'm a loud runner. And I was running with my son at one point, and he said, "Dad, you're really loud." And I thought, oh, it's just my son giving me a hard time. But I realized that I heel strike a lot. And I'm loud.
Whoa, why are you loud? Because you have a long stride, or
No,
because
because I'm
you
hitting
land a certain
the
way?
way I'm landing. So
Because you land on your heel?
I'm landing on my heel, yeah.
Huh, never
So
heard of that.
yeah,
Huh.
so I kind of took a step back, and I started to really look into the zero drop shoes, and also looking at videos on how to run like a barefoot runner. Right? There's this whole
Mhm.
thing about barefoot running.
Yeah.
I've seen guys in the marathon, LA Marathon, actually run bare feet. It's pretty amazing. Also running in sandals. not flip flops, but actual sandals that had, like a heel, like a strap at the heel and a strap over your toes. But anyway, I digress. So I started looking into zero drop shoes, and I found these shoes called Ultras. It's a company called Ultra, Altra, and this is about 5 years ago, I guess now. And they had a shoe that just come out, and it was called an Escalante. And I mean, you look at it, and it's extremely light. It's got a sock upper, so it doesn't have a lot of form to it. The heel to toe ratio is 0, meaning the heel stack height is the same height as the forefoot stack height, right? So it's not like you have a raised heel, right? Most running shoes have a raised heel to them, 5 to 8 millimeters, depending on the shoe and the manufacturer. So I ordered these shoes on, they're brand new. It was a brand new variety for them. And I bought those, and I bought some Hokas, which are also really good shoes. They have a lower stack height, but they still have a stack height, and they're super cushy. And I kind of A/B'd them running for a couple of weeks. And the Hokas are spelled Hoka, if you don't know. Hokas it was super cushy and super, like you're running on, pillows or whatever. Like they're the cushiest ones they could get. And then there's these Escalantes, which you look at and you go, that's going to hurt just running. They're so thin. But the funny thing is that the Ultras felt a lot better, and I didn't heel strike. As a matter of fact, it's kind of hard to heel strike in them, because if you change the way you run, if you kind of lean forward more and you increase your cadence and you forefoot plant, which is the concept of barefoot running, you're just going to run lighter. It's going to feel like you're running lighter. You're not going to heel strike. And actually, as crazy as this sounds, I cut my pace by 30 seconds. Because I wear a yeah, it's huge. I wear a Garmin watch, and I remember looking at my watch at the end of the run. At that point I was running about 5 miles, and I was doing about a 9.5-minute mile. And I looked at my watch, and I was like, whoa, did I just drop down to 8.5-minute mile? Like, am I just having a good day? But what ended up happening is that I actually had a better running experience. And the reason I'm bringing this up is not only did I increase my pace, but all my aches and pains went away. Like I was having Achilles heel pain, some other stuff going on, and stretching and doing all the normal stretches. But what was amazing is that a lot of the aches and pains that I was dealing with went away. I mean, it didn't have to drop into a jacuzzi every night after I went running, and I was able to run more consistently 3 days a week. And I was able to go up to 7 miles, 8 miles at a time. So now when I go out and run, I'm running 7, 8, 10 miles, and at a decent pace for a guy my age, and I'm not cursing my run 2 days later, and walking like Frankenstein in the morning because my calves hurt.
Are those thin shoes a way of barefoot running without being barefoot?
Exactly, it's exactly what it is. It's exactly what you're mimicking barefoot running. Now, it's not for everybody. I mean, I've got a friend who's a physical therapist, and he used to be an elite runner. I mean, elite runner, 2 hours and 22 hours and 30-minute runner, marathon runner, very fast. And he doesn't like zero drop at all. He likes his Asics or whatever the heck he runs in. So I'm not saying that in order to be a better runner, you need to get in zero drop, but just from my perspective, it really helped clean up my running. Just like when I swim. I mean, I swim also. We'll get into that topic, but it wasn't until I had a coach for a couple of times, actually coach what I was doing and go, you really need to lengthen your reach and roll your body back and forth in the water, and all the things they told me to do. Bring your hips up and so on, that swimming became pleasurable. Before that, I was just like, working my tail off to get to one end of the pool to the other. And my son always said I looked like a wind-up toy in the pool. And part of that is just the way I was swimming and not having the right technique. And that's what these zero drop shoes have done, is they've changed my technique. So now, I still stretch. I'm stretching my hamstrings. I think if you're going to be a runner and you're going to do this, especially as you get older, you can't take the approach that you did in high school and college, which is I'm just going to, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
stay up till 2 a.m. and drink and then get up at 8 o'clock and go run 5 miles. It's just not going to work, right? You have to be properly prepared. You have to have a good night's sleep. You have to stretch your hamstrings. You have to stretch your TFL, right? The tensor fasciae lata, the side of your legs. You have to stretch out your quads. You have to stretch out your calves.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stretch out your low back and glutes, right? You have to stretch that lower kinetic chain and prepare yourself to run. But even with all those things in place, if you don't have proper technique and proper shoes or proper kit that works for you, then you're just going to be, at least in my case, running up against a lot of barriers that you don't need to run up against. The other thing that really helped me was getting a watch, getting a running watch. You don't have to get a fancy one. The one I have is like 5 or 6 years old. It's a Garmin 235. It's just a basic running watch, and it tracks my heart rate and stuff like that. But that helps too, right? It'll track your cadence, and it'll track all the other things that are happening.
Sure.
The other thing that's really important, if you're getting back into running, is taking a look at your weight. Your body weight. I mean, if you're carrying more than, I would say, 15 to 20 pounds of extra weight, and everybody knows how much their weight is, or how they feel about their weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I should really get into the amount, because it's really about your body type and so on. But if you're carrying a lot of extra weight, then you really need to go slow. You need to walk and get on some kind of a diet, or change
Mm-hmm.
Change your diet and lose that weight before you start running. Because think about running and carrying an extra 20-pound bag of rice or flour or whatever as you're running, right? Or put ankle weights on, 2 5-pound ankle. You ever done that? Put 2 5-pound ankle weights on? I mean, after a mile, you just want to keel over, right? So if you're carrying a lot of extra weight, that's going to impact your hips. That's going to impact that lower kinetic chain, your hips, your ankles, your knees, your low back. I mean, so you have to kind of look at this also from the perspective of, am I in shape enough to run? What else do I need to do? Maybe you need to bike a little bit, or something else, and get your weight down before you get out there.
Well, I think a key point in all of this, and it's any type of exercise, when you're in your middle age, is to ease into it.
Exactly.
You mentioned that at the beginning, where you walked first.
Right.
I think that's a mistake most guys in their 40s and 50s and 60s make, is they remember, hey, when I was 25, I used to bench press 250 pounds, and they go and they, instead of benching just 50 pounds at the beginning,
right,
they go too hard too fast, and you pull a muscle, you strain something, and then you can't exercise for a month while you rehab and wait for it to get better, and then they do it again, they too hard too fast, and you really got to just ease your way into things, whether it's weights or swimming or tennis or anything. Just take it easy at first, especially if you're overweight, because it's just that extra baggage banging on your joints. So walk for 3-4 months, and then go to it's just a faster walk, and really, really ease into it. The other thing too is, I think in your middle ages, you can do a lot of the things you did as a kid, but your body isn't as forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, you can start running without stretching or worrying about technique, and get away with it. But I think as you get older, you can't get away with it. As you get older, stretching becomes more important. Technique becomes more important. Equipment becomes more important.
Big time.
And 20-year-old kid, though, can get away with that stuff not being optimal. But as you get older, you really got to think it through and make sure you're doing everything the right way.
Absolutely. One of the things that, and I'm due for a new watch. I'm trying to find one that's more of a triathlete watch, because I'm doing a lot of swimming. But watches. The watches are amazing. Garmin. Whichever manufacturer. I'm not plugging Garmin, but I just tend to use that. But one thing I do is I track my VO2 max, I track my heart rate, and my
Hmm.
watch will basically tell me in my run what my pace is, my cadence, the elevation when I'm running, and so on. And really the one thing I do when I finish running is I look at my heart rate and where was my heart rate and what was my pace. And I try to get myself to 80% max. That's where I try to find the sweet spot. If I'm approaching 80% of my maximum heart rate, then for me personally, I'm not saying everybody does this, but for me personally, that's kind of my boundary, right? So if I do a run, and a lot of times I won't even know it. Like I'm not one of these runners that's constantly staring at my watch, and because I think that drives me. I've done that. It drives me nuts. But when I look back at my run and I look back at my statistics off my Garmin, and I think to myself, yeah, I had a good run. I was doing an 8.5. I averaged an 8.5 minute pace, and I only hit 60% of my max. Then okay, I kind of log that in my head, and then 2 days later when I run again, I run 3 days a week. I'll push myself a little more, or
Yeah.
I'll take a little more of an aggressive approach to that hill or whatever. Most of my running is also trail, so I do a lot of trail running. I run on the beach, which is running on sand is hard, believe it or not.
That is
Your
hard. Yeah.
calves burn like hell. I did that one day. I did 4 miles on the beach. It was just a beautiful day. Oh my God, I couldn't. I was like on hands and knees for the first 2 hours of the next day. But but what you run on is important too, right? So if you live in the
Yeah.
city and everything's concrete and you really just don't have access to trails and you don't want to drive and find a trail, that can make a difference, and that can make a difference in the shoes you wear and how you approach it. So just my method is not
Absolutely.
necessarily everybody's method. The other thing that I wanted to mention that really affects me as I get older is the weather. Um, I'm not a real early morning person as a general rule, but when it gets hot, we're in June right now, or, excuse me, we're in July. Um, I've got to get out there at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. If I'm out around 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and the sun's out, it may be 70, on my thermostat on my car, let's say, but it feels like 80, right? The
Yeah.
heat is there. Even in the afternoon, the sun doesn't go down till 8 o'clock, and if I do a run at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, that's still, that the sun's out and it's beating down, even down by the beach. If it's 70, 72 degrees, it feels like 80.
Hmm.
So definitely, the older you get, I think the more you just have to be tuned into stuff. You have to like plan, right? You're not 18, you go out in 90-degree weather or whatever. You're
Yeah.
the old, I'm, chew nails and spit rust. I don't do that anymore. So I have to be conscious of what I'm doing. But it's something you can do in your 50s. You can do it in your 60s. You can do it in your 70s. I mean, I've run the LA Marathon a few times now. I've done I've done the half marathon out of Pasadena. I've done tons of 10Ks, and I'm always just stoked at the guy that's 80 doing a run. And don't call that out. Bob's 80 today and he's running the marathon. I just look at these guys and I go, that's what I want to do. I want to be in the
Hmm.
chute, waiting to run the LA Marathon at 80. I mean, how crazy is that? I mean, that's just
You can do
amazing.
it.
Yeah, and you can do it. It's not impossible. I mean, you have to, and it kind of, if you have a goal like that, whatever it is, running or biking or I don't, whatever it is, it's a great goal to have. It's a great motivator, and it'll force you to stay in shape. It'll force you
Yeah.
it'll force you to be consistent, right? It'll force you to be consistent, and I think that's the thing I'll leave you with is, you know, consistency, at least with running, is everything. If I take a month off and sit on the couch and do nothing, boy, it's a long it. I can't just jump back into running. I take
Yeah.
3 steps back, and I have to build back. I have to build my cardio back, and get back to where I was. So, you know, being consistent is really super important. But it's a lot of fun, and it's a great hobby, and it's cheap and easy, and you can do it anywhere, and you know, it's not like you have to be a millionaire to do it, So, the best pair of running shoes, I think, what, about 120 bucks. So anyway, yeah, thought I'd just share that with you. I think it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
Good stuff.
All right, man.